Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our Facebook Live Town Hall for July. As you can see, we're doing things a little bit differently this time. My name is Doug Graham, Communications Specialist for Heartland. With me is Mark Scheibe, our CEO. So good evening, Mark.
Good evening, Doug. Thanks for joining me here late this evening.
Hey, it's my pleasure. I wanted to take just a moment tonight to introduce myself to those who are watching. Again, my name is Doug Graham. I live here in Girard at our right just a minute away from our headquarters, pretty much. I was blessed with the opportunity to come aboard at Heartland almost 4 months ago now, so it's been a lot of learning in that time. Prior to that, I spent a little over a decade at Greenbush and a lot of great experiences there. As our communication specialist, I head up our social media feeds. I do our website updates. I put together the Heartbeat newsletter. And something else that's really cool is being able to help with our community support programs like donations and grants and things of that nature. So I'm really grateful to be here. It was evident right away that the leadership team at Heartland really values communication and understands how important it is to keep our consumer members informed and engaged. And that's really my goal as communication specialist, is to provide as many opportunities as I can to inform and engage our consumer members. So I hope that this is one way of doing that. And so you can feel free to provide us your feedback with other things you'd like to see. But we also hope that by doing this here at 6 o'clock tonight, we might be able to get a few viewers that we might not have gotten during our previous ones when they were at noon. So thanks again for tuning in. Our main topic tonight is related to Mark's article in the most recent Heartbeat, and that is electric rates. We're at kind of an exciting time when a lot of change is possible, a lot of positive change. There's a lot of opportunities to do better and to push forward in this realm. So tonight we're going to talk about that, and we're also going to answer your questions, any questions that you chime in with on our comments. So feel free to ask. Before we get started, I did want to remind everyone that we are offering a one-time $5 bill credit for anybody who signs up for paperless billing through SmartHub this month. So you can learn more about that at our website, heartland-rec.com/paperless. And there's step-by-step instructions there. I also wanted to remind everyone that it's not too late to sign up for the Peak Savers program. It's a voluntary program where we reward our consumer members who shift their electric use outside of the peak hours on certain days that we know are going to be the highest consumption days with bill credits for that as well. So it's not too late. If you want to get in on it, I encourage you to do so now, because once we actually call one of those peak days, then it's going to be too late to join in and participate. So you can learn more about that at heartland-rec.com/peak savers. So that's kind of a good transition, actually, because Peak Savers is pretty closely related to our main topic, which is electric rates. Yes, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to ask our first question for Mark here. Mark, I thought it might be helpful for everybody if we kind of set the stage here by just giving us a quick reminder of what Heartland does as a distribution cooperative.
Yeah, so Heartland as a distribution co-op, what we do is we get wholesale power, and then it is our job to distribute that electricity out to our consumer members using our infrastructure. So that infrastructure is our poles, our wires, our transformers are there, and basically we take it from our substations and get it out to the end consumer. So us as Heartland, we actually buy our power from a cooperative, a generation and transmission cooperative, and that's Kansas Electric Power Co-ops. They are headquartered in Topeka. And so as you all are part owners of Heartland, us as Heartland is also part owners of KEPCO. So there are 16 total distribution co-ops in the state of Kansas that are owners of KEPCO. And KEPCO's responsibility through the whole power sale side of things is really to make sure that all of the generation resources, whether it's owned or contracted, are in place to make sure that they're meeting the needs of the consumer members of Heartland and the other distribution co-ops.
Okay, thank you, Mark. So when we go to buy our power from KEPCO, how does that work? Is there a flat price that we pay, per kilowatt hour, like it is for our consumer members who are residential?
Yeah, so I talked a little bit about this during the in the article, and a lot of the pricing that we have coming from KEPCO is really more based on timing than it is just on a flat kilowatt hour charge. Over half of our electric bill coming from KEPCO each month is really just based on timing alone. To kind of get into the weeds a little bit with you, it's going to bear with me here, but there's a point to it. So we have a 4-part rate. In that 4-part rate, we're looking at a couple different things coming from KEPCO. One of them is really based on the every delivery point, every substation that we have, we get charged a meter fee, similar to the service availability charge that we get charged to our consumer members. So that's there. We also have a coincident peak charge. And so those coincident peaks are only set for 4 months in the year. That's June, July, August, September. The 1 hour of each one of those months that it's our peak usage, that is what we get billed from KEPCO on those. And then whatever of those 4 months is the highest of those 4, we then put onto what is called a ratcheted demand. So for the other 8 months of the year, we get charged a portion of that, a pretty significant portion of that each month, just as making sure that there's enough generation there. So when it's the hottest days during the summer, there's enough generation there to make sure that power is available. Then there's also a non-coincident peak charge. So this one's going to fluctuate every month of the year, all 12 months. And it's all based on what the actual consumption is during that particular time on the system. So if you think about it, it's more of the transmission lines, so the poles and the wires to get from the generation resources to our substations, and that non-coincident peak charge really covers that. And then lastly, we have the kilowatt hour charge, and that's going to vary each month as well, just by how many kilowatt hours or how much energy is being consumed by the consumer members of Heartland here. So I know it's a lot to take in, but really when it comes down to it, it boils down to 2 main pieces. The first part is that kilowatt hours themselves, so that's a consumption-based thing. But then again, over half of our energy comes from the second component, which is a timing-based component. It's around that coincident peak, that non-coincident peak. So those are really timing-based components, and that's where most of our bill charges come from. And when we look at ways to be able to control our electric costs that Heartland gets charged, and then we have to pass those costs on to our members. That controllable cost is really that coincident peak, or those couple hours during the summer when it's the most opportunity to just shift some electric usage off of that time period, and then we can offer ways to save money to our consumer members at the same time.
Okay, so hearing that, it's pretty easy to understand why a program like Peak Savers would exist, because it rewards people who shift their usage out of those peak times, so that can greatly reduce the amount of money that Heartland as a whole has to pay for that power. But let's make the transition here. How does help us understand what our current residential rates are based on under our current setup, which is, I think, kind of more of a flat cost. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. Our residential rates are based purely on usage right now. So what that means is that every couple of years we do a cost of service study and we do a rate study, and our consultants crunch some numbers to come up with what the cost per kilowatt hour should be. And so it kind of takes all these peak components that we talked about a little bit earlier and then flattens them out and says, here's what the average cost should be. We also have a fuel cost adjustment in there it's what we call the power cost adjustment. So that's also going to be on your bill. But the advantage of doing the flat cost rate is really that it's easy to explain to our consumer members. And also, it's pretty darn easy to be able to bill off of that as well. So if you think about it historically, when electric co-ops were put in place, the spinning disk meters were easy to come by, and there was no electronic meters out there in order to capture more data. And so from the really beginning of the electric industry, we needed a way to be able to bill people. And so consumption was the easiest way to do that. And that's why historically, that's what's been done in the past.
So it's easy to explain to folks. It's easy to manage on the billing side, but there are some disadvantages as well, correct?
Yeah. So if you kind of picked up on what I was saying earlier, where the bill that we get from KEPCO is quite complicated and intense, anytime you take something that's complicated and you make it simple, there's going to be disadvantages within there. So one disadvantage of the flat rate fee, kind of like I alluded to in my article on the heartbeat that should have been hitting people's mailboxes here in the last week or so, is really timing of electricity really matters on what the bills are going to be. So I think in the article, I put an example out there of somebody using their clothes dryer. Something most electric customers have is an electric clothes dryer out there. If they run that for the 1 hour during the summer when we're peaking, it cost Heartland about $400 for that electricity used during that 1 hour period. And yet that consumer member is only getting a bill for about 45 cents or so for that energy consumption. So really the flat rate obscures how we get billed as Heartland and really what the true cost of power is coming to us. There's also some fairness concerns. So really, if we have a lot of consumer members that use a lot of electricity during the peak, then we essentially through the rest of the year and through the rest of the electric rates have to be able to recoup all those costs. And so we have to spread those out to the other consumer members, whether or not they actually contributed to those peaks or not. It's just how the cost of service study and the rate study have been used historically. And I think the other issue that we really have, or the other potential problem, is that for residential consumers outside of peak savers, there's no incentive for anybody to move their electricity usage off peak. So if you think about it, if it's a flat kilowatt hour charge, you're going to get the same charge from Heartland, whether you're using power at 2 a.m. or 2 p.m. or 5 a.m. or 5 p.m. Why does it really matter? So if we send the right pricing signals going forward, then we might be able to have opportunities for people to control their electric costs better.
So we think there's some room to improve here for the benefit of the entire cooperative and for the benefit of individual members as well.
Absolutely.
So what are some of those things that we're looking at doing to address this?
Yeah, for quite a while now, we've been looking at a couple different options to be able to do this. So I'll just kind of run through some of those examples here with you tonight, Doug, if that's okay. So one of them is going to be coincident peak, where during the summer months, that June, July, August, September, that we would charge for whatever each month of those peaks would be able to essentially 3 to 6 p.m. if we call it a peak day, try to avoid using electricity during that time. If you can do that, then you would see less charge on your electric bills. So if for a few days in a month, you just shift things around 3 to 6 p.m., you can save some money. The way that it's kind of like an expansion of the Peak Savers program, really, if we're thinking about it. But that might be something advantageous for somebody that is looking for options to control their electric costs without controlling how much energy, how many kilowatt hours they use in a current month. Another option that we've been looking at is to look at a non-coincident peak. So this would be kind of the all-you-can-eat buffet version of the electric rates. So essentially, if you at your home use the same amount of electricity pretty much any day of the year, you have the same type of electricity usage during the summer anyway, you have one peak the first day of the month, and as long as you don't exceed that peak the rest of the month, you can go back and use that electricity amount, the same amount each month, and have no issue. So this would be something that would be all 12 months long, but then also would be for those that maybe don't want to shift their electric usage off of the 3 to 6 time period, but want to have another way to possibly control their electric charge or electric bills coming in, would be to have this non-coincident peak. The last two are a little more simple. They're more based on the timing of consumption, but just on kilowatt hour charges. So we're not talking about peak charges or anything like that, but instead consumption at that point. So one would be just a peak charge, whether it's 3 to 6 p.m. During the summer months. So again, that June, July, August, September timeframe, and have that there, or maybe it might even be all 12 months. We'll see exactly where that might come into play. And then the other one would be to have a potential of a super off-peak option. So this would be beneficial for anybody that might have like an electric vehicle and they can control their electric vehicle charging to midnight to 4 a.m. And so energy charge during that time would be very reasonable, very affordable. The 3 to 6 p.m. would be the most expensive, and then all the other hours of the day would also be fairly reasonable through there. And really, when we think about it, why would we be even looking at doing any alternative options for charging for consumption and energy or any of these other pieces? It's really to be able to provide a clear signal to our consumer members about when we're getting billed, how we're getting billed, and then be able to provide members with ways to control their electric costs going forward. So if we have the option as Heartland to do that, we might as well be also sharing in that with our consumer members and sending pricing signals so they can take advantage of those as well.
So that's a lot to take in. I've talked with you a few times about this, and I'm still kind of grasping all that. So I just want to reassure everybody that as we work through this, and we land on kind of what we think we want to do, we're going to work really hard to break all this down, make it as understandable and clear and easy to dive into as we can. So that'll be a challenge for me in the coming months. But talking about the process of working through this and identifying, specifically what we're going to do. We're a member-owned cooperative, so I know it's really important to you, to the whole leadership team, to our board of directors, that we get input from our consumer members on things like this that are going to impact the whole cooperative. I mean, after all, our consumer members are our owners as well. So how are we going to make sure that we take into account the thoughts, opinions, concerns, ideas of all these different kinds of consumer members that we have as we're working on this process?
Yeah, so we've been tossing this around for a little while and trying to figure out what exactly the right option would be. So we're going to be working on putting together some focus groups from each one of our 4 director districts. So we're not just focused on just one area within the communities we serve. So the exact makeup of these, the timing and the locations of the meetings are still to be determined, but really we want to get a good cross-section of our residential consumer members. So we're not looking only for people who use electricity in a heavy manner or just those that use a little bit, but really looking for, again, cross-section. We'll also be reaching out to our commercial accounts to make sure that we have opportunity to have some discussions with them as well, because we're looking at other ways to provide opportunities for them to save money on their bills as well. But the focus groups really be looking at the residential customers or the consumer members the most. So if you're interested in participating, there's going to be a quick form that's going to pop up on our website tomorrow morning. It'll also be linked on Facebook tomorrow morning as well. So there'll be a few questions in there that you can answer, and it'll really give us an idea of how you use electricity. And so whether you have distributed generation, so you have wind or solar, you have an electric vehicle, you have a heat pump, you have electric heat, whether you love technology, whether you hate all forms of technology, whether you have a computer, whether you're even watching us here on Facebook tonight, whatever it is, if you can, we want a good cross section of members. So if you're interested in participating, we really do encourage you to fill out the form. And again, it's a way for the consumer members, the members of the co-op, to have your voices be heard. So we can kind of run through some of these in more detail to make sure that we're not way off base, but instead we're really taking in feedback as decisions are being made.
Well, Mark, thank you for diving a little bit deeper into electric rates. It can be a little bit overwhelming, but I think it's important to bring all of our members into the fold on this and help them understand, some of the potential for the future. I think there's really a lot of exciting things that can come out of this process. Let's see. I think it's time to see if we have any questions from folks either on Facebook right now or questions that have been submitted in the last week or two. One thing that we've had a few questions about, we've had some outages in our kind of northern service area around the Parker and Miami substations. I just wondered, can you share any information that folks in those areas might be interested in? What might they be seeing up there?
Yeah. First off, I want to apologize for the outages. We've been looking at the numbers here for quite a while, and specifically here over the last couple of days after we had a longer outage over the weekend, this past weekend. And really want to say sorry that we're having these interruptions and these outages going on. And I'm not happy about the issues. Our staff is not happy about the issues. And really, we are working closely with KEPCO, our power supplier, and also with Evergy, who owns the transmission lines up there in the area, to work on solutions. And so I would like to say that this was going to be an easy fix and overnight we could fix something. But when you talk about miles and miles of transmission line and some potential issues that need to be addressed, it's going to be focusing all of our solutions. We're going to focus on short-term pieces, but then also what's the long-term reliability look like? So how are we going to get the win here quick, but then also look for the long-term reliability? And so we don't really have a plan for you necessarily today, other than we'll be meeting with Evergy and with KEPCO here in the next week or two and come up with what the plan is. And then once we have that plan in place, we're planning on sending out a letter to all the consumer members that are impacted up on those two substation areas in the very northern part of our territory and let you know what to expect going forward. And it's not going to be a short process or a couple of days. We'll have it fixed. But really, thank you for bearing with us. And I do apologize for the inconvenience, but do know that you have our full attention and we have Evergy's full attention as well. And so we'll be working on addressing these as the next couple of days start coming in here.
Okay. I don't think I see anything else coming in from our Facebook viewers. I do want to say thanks to everybody again for tuning in.
I do have a question for you too, Doug, if you got a second.
Okay, yes, I think I do.
So Doug, I know when you started here, we talked a little bit about the billing and going paperless. So can you talk a little bit about how going paperless really is impactful for the consumer members of Heartland and also Heartland itself?
Yeah, sure. I mean, there are several reasons why I think it's a really good idea to go paperless. Well, I mean, number one is that this month, if you do it, you get a $5 bill credit for very, very little work. And we make it real easy and line out step by step how to do it. One thing, though, that's more practical is that you might have noticed that the mail is tending to be a little bit slower these days. I don't know what all is playing into that, but it's a factor. We're seeing that in everything that we send out. So the nice thing about going paperless is as soon as a bill is ready, you're going to get that in your email inbox right away, no waiting. Another reason is cost to the cooperative. You've probably noticed that some companies, like a lot of banks, they may charge you $1 a month or something like that if you don't go paperless. We don't really want to get into that, but we do want to be proactive and try to keep our costs under control in that area, because another thing that's happening with the post office and that you might have seen in the news is that mail postage rates are going up, and we do a lot of mailing. So this is one way that you can kind of help keep the cost for the entire cooperative down by signing up for the paperless billing. So it really benefits the whole cooperative that way. So I think that's all I've got on paperless billing for now. Again, heartland-rac.com, our website. Just hit /paperless. There's also just a link. It's one of the big slider images there as well.
Can't miss it.
Yeah, you can't miss it.
Yeah.
Okay, lastly, I just want to throw out another plug for our focus groups, because I think it's really exciting to get members involved and engaged. It's a great opportunity to meet your district directors that you may have never met before. You might not even be aware that Heartland is governed by a board of directors, 2 from each of 4 districts, so 8 total from throughout our service area. So you get to meet them, have a say in the future of the co-op. And wherever we have them, we'll have food. So free food is always a bonus. People seem to like that. And we'll provide you with some kind of small gift as well for your time. So it will be rewarding in many ways.
Yeah, so this is going to be kind of a selection process. So we hope we have quite a few applicants from each director district area, so then we can choose them and just really make this a good thing. So if there's any additional information on the application you can fill out to help us understand you and your electric usage, that would definitely be useful for us. So appreciate the ability to have everybody have the option to do this. So appreciate everybody that's going to participate.
Sherry Davis, I will definitely put the link to sign up for the paperless billing and Smart Hub. I will put that in the comments here as soon as we're finished. So no problem at all. Thank you again for everybody tuning in. I appreciate you giving us a little bit of your time and appreciate your interest and engagement with the cooperative. It is your cooperative, so we're glad you're here.
Yeah, thank you very much, everybody. Have a great night.